There are secrets buried so deep beneath the earth that the soil itself screams if you listen closely enough. I am about to tell you the story of Prince Cassie, a creature born of starlight and frost from the winter court, and the mortal woman who taught him exactly how a god can be broken. You might think you have heard tales like this before, of beautiful fairy tales where an immortal noble falls for a human girl, but I warn you now to abandon any hope of a rescue or a broken curse. If you stay until the final seal is broken, you will realize that love is not a sanctuary. It is the most vicious, agonizing trap ever invented. Within the next 2 minutes, everything you thought you knew about the fair folk will shatter, because this is a meticulous chronicle of raw horror wrapped in silk. You will watch a kingdom rise on the back of a living nightmare, and by the time you reach the end, you will wish you had never stepped into the woods to find him. Long before his name became a forbidden whisper, Prince Cassie ruled the frozen peaks of the northern wilds with a terrifying, devastating grace. He was an untouchable being of shadows and ice, possessing skin like polished obsidian, eyes that burned like cold blue stars, and thick, coily white hair that drifted around his shoulders like a raging snowstorm. For 400 years, he watched the mortal world with absolute detachment, knowing the sharp edge of human greed and the brief, pathetic flicker of their lives. Yet, on the night of the frost moon, his perfect isolation fell apart. He found her freezing on the borders of his realm. Zaria, a mortal woman with eyes like liquid amber and a halo of golden-brown afro-textured hair that seemed to trap the sun. Instead of letting winter claim her, an unfamiliar, suffocating warmth bloomed in Cassie's chest. In saving her, the terrifying Winter King was completely undone. He loved her with a desperate, frantic intensity, entirely blind to the ancient law of the wild. Never trust a mortal's tears, for they are merely water hiding a knife.
Thanks for watching this very emotional stories of Fae Kingdom in this channel. Do subscribe and share to help growing the channel to enable us bring more to you.
The suspense of their love became a thin sheet of ice stretching over a bottomless abyss. Zaria returned to the human kingdom, promising to come back to his icy palace, but when she crossed the border weeks later, she brought a thick, suffocating dread with her. She looked at Cassie with a desperate, pale-faced panic, weeping as she claimed her village was being brutally slaughtered by a neighboring tyrant. She begged her prince to come to her human valley, to erect an unbreakable barrier of frost to save her people from annihilation. Cassie, blinded by his desperate love, did not notice the subtle tremor in her hands or the way her amber eyes refused to look directly into his blue star gaze. He followed her into the mortal valley under the cover of a moonless night, entirely unaware that he was walking into a calculated execution of his freedom. The village square was eerily quiet, too quiet. No wind howled, no crickets chirped, and the heavy air smelled thickly of rusted metal and burning sage. As Cassie stepped into the center of the stones, Zaria suddenly stopped walking. She turned to face him, her beautiful eyes welling with tears, but her expression was cold, calculating, and entirely empty. Before the prince could speak, a deafening screech tore through the night. The ground beneath his boots shattered, revealing a massive, deep pit lined entirely with jagged spikes of cold iron. Cassie fell, his fey grace stripped away instantly by the toxic metal, but he did not hit the spikes. Instead, he levitated, held in place by a blinding, agonizing beam of silver light shooting directly from Zaria's chest. The silver drop of his own life force, the sacred gift of winter storms he had freely given to protect her, was now being violently weaponized against him. From the darkness of the shadows stepped the village elder, holding an ancient, cursed scroll. Zaria had never been trying to save her people from a tyrant. She had bartered Cassie's immortal, pristine body to pay off a desperate blood debt her family owed to a cult of dark sorcerers, trading his timeless devotion for her own mortal prosperity.
Thanks for watching this very emotional stories of Fae Kingdom in this channel. Do subscribe and share to help growing the channel to enable us bring more to you.
The final chapter of Prince Cassie's existence became a nightmare that the viewers of this tale would wish they could unsee. They did not grant him the mercy of death, for death requires a release of energy, and the cult intended to bleed him of every drop. Instead, they built a towering, horrific monument in the center of the town square, a massive hollow obsidian statue with a transparent glass chest cavity. Using the magical link inside Zaria's heart, they dragged Cassie's paralyzed, trembling body up into the air and sealed him alive inside the suffocating glass tomb. The torment that followed was designed to be eternal. The glass chamber was filled with a volatile, corrosive alchemical fluid that constantly dissolved Cassie's flawless obsidian skin and silver flesh, only for his immortal fey biology to violently and painfully regenerate it a second later. Every single time his body healed, the pure magical energy released by his agonizing regeneration was siphoned through copper tubes into the town's grid, powering their lights, warming their homes, and making their crops grow in unnatural abundance. The audience above cheered for their new era of prosperity, entirely ignoring the muffled, distorted screams of the white-haired prince echoing from the glass monument every single morning. Zaria was rewarded with immense wealth and a high seat in the ruling council. She lived a long, prosperous life, growing old, wrinkled, and gray, draped in fine silks paid for by the literal daily flaying of the man who had adored her. She would often walk past the monument, looking up into the glass at the dimming, hollow blue eyes of the prince. Cassie never looked back down. His mind had broken into a million jagged shards of ice. He remained suspended in that soup of agony, a living, breathing engine of torment, realizing too late that the warmth he had felt in her arms was just the first stage of being burned alive. There would be no rescue, no sudden awakening of ancient power, and no redemption. There was only the endless, icy quiet, and the terrifying certainty that he would remain there, beautiful and broken, until the world itself crumbled into dust. Centuries bled into the void, long after Zaria's bones had rotted into the very soil his stolen magic kept fertile. The human kingdom grew massive, a sprawling modern empire of glass and iron powered entirely by a golden current that never flickered. Dynasties rose and fell, and the memory of the mortal girl who had trapped a god faded into myth, then into nothing at all. But beneath the bright lights of the metropolis, the heart of the machine remained unchanged. Inside the obsidian monument, buried deep in the foundations of the city, Prince Cassie existed only as a ghost bound to a heartbeat. His white hair, once like a majestic winter storm, now floated like dead silk in the stagnant alchemical fluid. His eyes, which had once burned like cold blue stars, were entirely opaque, hollow, sightless mirrors that no longer reflected the world above. The corrosive liquid continued its endless, rhythmic cycle, tearing his flesh away layer by layer, only for his immortal biology to stitch it back together in an unceasing, agonizing loop. He had forgotten the sound of the wind through the frozen peaks. He had forgotten the smell of the northern snow. He had even forgotten her name. There was no room left for memory in a mind that had been shattered and remade 10,000 times over. The story of the Winter Prince did not end with a heroic rebellion or a sudden burst of ancient wrath. The magic he had given away was too absolute, the lock too securely fastened by his own trusting hands. Above him, millions of people lived their lives in warmth and safety, falling in love under artificial lights, utterly oblivious to the fact that their paradise was fueled by the eternal, muffled screams of a creature who had loved too deeply. Cassie remained suspended in the dark, a pristine engine of endless torment, completely broken, completely forgotten. He was left with nothing but the crushing, infinite quiet of his cage, a terrifying monument to the truth that the most dangerous thing an immortal can ever do is believe in a mortal's warmth.
Thanks for watching this very emotional stories of Fae Kingdom in this channel. Do subscribe and share to help growing the channel to enable us bring more to you.